Ladies and gentlemen, I want to begin by asking a simple question. How many times have you let someone's words or actions affect your peace, your joy, your sense of self-worth? We've all been there. Someone insults you, disappoints you, or simply fails to meet your expectations. And in that moment, you feel the sting of their negativity, the weight of their judgment, or the deep wound of betrayal. It feels personal. It feels like them. But here's the truth. It's never really about them. I am here to share with you the spiritual secret to never let anyone affect you. When you grasp this secret, your life will change. Your relationships will transform, and more importantly, you will discover a level of inner peace that can never be shaken by external circumstances. The first part of this secret is realizing who you are. If you are not grounded in the understanding of your own identity, then you will be easily swayed by the opinions and actions of others. Consider the story of the great King David. In the Old Testament, David faced a countless number of challenges. From a jealous king trying to kill him to the mockery of his own brothers. Yet David did not let their actions define him. He understood that his identity was not based on the perceptions of others, but on his calling and his relationship with the Creator. In Psalm 139:14, David declares, "I am fearfully and wonderfully made." He knew that his value came from a higher source. When you know who you are in God, no person's words or actions can diminish your worth. Let me put it this way. Imagine you're holding a diamond in your hand. The diamond is priceless, regardless of how others perceive it. If someone insults the diamond, does its value decrease? Of course not. So why would you let someone's words or actions cause you to question your worth? When you understand your identity, you are unshakable because your value is not subject to human approval. The foundation of never allowing anyone to affect you begins with understanding who you truly are. Your identity is the key to your inner strength. It is the bedrock of your emotional stability and personal peace. If you are unclear about who you are, if your sense of worth is based on the opinions and judgments of others, you will forever be vulnerable to their criticisms, their negativity, and their toxic behavior. Take a moment to think about how often you let someone else define you. Maybe it's a boss who criticizes your work, a friend who belittles your dreams, or a family member who dismisses your worth. These words can sting, can hurt, and in many cases we internalize them. But why do we do this? Why do we allow people who barely know us to shape our perception of ourselves? The truth is, when you do not know your identity, you give other people the power to define who you are. But when you understand that your identity comes from something far deeper than the fleeting opinions of those around you, you are no longer swayed by their judgments. Your identity is not found in the fleeting things of this world. It's found in the eternal truths of who you are in God. The story of King David from the Bible is one that exemplifies this truth perfectly. David, before he became king, was overlooked and underestimated. His own brothers dismissed him when the prophet Samuel came to choose a king. They saw him as just a shepherd boy, not someone worthy of being in the royal line. But God saw something different. When Samuel asked Jesse to bring forth his sons, God told him, "Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." God chose David because he knew David's heart, his character, and the greatness that was within him. David knew that his value was not determined by the people around him. Even when he was mocked, even when he was misunderstood, he never allowed their opinions to sway him. David's sense of worth was rooted in God's calling and purpose for his life. This is where true strength comes from. When you understand that your worth is unshakable, not based on external validation, but on the fact that you are uniquely and wonderfully made by your Creator. Imagine for a moment that you are a masterpiece, a priceless work of art. A masterpiece is valuable regardless of how it is viewed by others. Whether someone admires it or criticizes it, whether it hangs in a gallery or is hidden away in a dusty attic, it remains invaluable. The value of the masterpiece does not change based on human opinions. It is established by the artist. In the same way, your value is established by God, not by the opinions of others. When you start living from a place of knowing who you are, you will stop being swayed by what people say or do. People will still criticize, but their words won't have the power to take away your peace or make you doubt your worth. Your identity in Christ makes you unshakable. It is like an anchor that holds you firm no matter what storms life throws your way. Realizing your purpose. When you truly understand why you were created, you cannot be distracted by the opinions, the negativity, or the actions of others. Purpose is a filter for everything you experience. It gives you direction and focus. Without purpose, you are like a ship without a rudder, drifting aimlessly with no sense of destination. But with purpose, you are anchored. You know where you are going and why you are going there. Purpose is a game changer. When you are focused on your purpose, external distractions lose their power over you. Think about a person who is passionate about their work or mission. They are so consumed with what they are doing that nothing, no criticism, no setbacks, no negativity can pull them off course. Their eyes are set on the prize. They know their why, and that drives them forward with unstoppable momentum. The story of Nehemiah is a perfect example of someone who understood their purpose. Nehemiah was tasked with rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, but the journey was filled with obstacles. He faced mockery, threats, and intense opposition. The people around him, including his enemies, mocked him and tried to undermine his mission. They laughed at his vision, telling him he could never accomplish it. But Nehemiah, knowing his purpose, refused to be distracted by the negativity of others. When the enemies mocked him and tried to pull him away from his work, he said, "I am doing a great work and I cannot come down." Nehemiah 6:03. Nehemiah's focus was not on the critics. His focus was on the mission. He was determined to complete the task because he understood that his purpose was greater than the voices of opposition. What if you approached every situation in your life with this same mindset? What if you were so deeply rooted in your purpose that nothing could derail you from it? You would become unshakable. You would no longer be dependent on the approval of others because you would have a far higher purpose that drives you. In today's world, we often get sidetracked by the opinions of others, especially with social media, where everyone has a platform to voice their judgment. But when you live for your purpose, the noise of the crowd becomes irrelevant. Whether people praise or criticize you doesn't matter because you are focused on something far bigger. You are driven by a sense of mission that transcends the temporary opinions of the world. Take Steve Jobs, for example. When he was first starting Apple, many people doubted him. Some even said his vision would never work. But Jobs had a clear sense of purpose. He didn't let the criticisms of others dictate his path. He was determined to change the world with his ideas. And that unwavering focus on his purpose led to the creation of one of the most powerful companies in the world. Jobs once said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." This is the power of purpose. When you are aligned with your purpose, the actions and opinions of others don't have the power to sway you. They become mere background noise while you stay focused on the vision that is burning in your heart. Purpose gives you resilience. It gives you the strength to persevere when the road gets tough. It gives you the inner conviction to say, "I know where I'm going, and nothing will stop me from getting there." When you have that kind of clarity, no criticism or negativity can derail you from your path. You are driven by something far more powerful than the fleeting opinions of others. Protecting your mind One of the most crucial steps in never letting anyone affect you is learning how to protect your mind. Your mind is the battlefield where battles are won or lost. Every day, you face a constant onslaught of thoughts, opinions, and external influences. People will say things about you. They will misunderstand you. They will criticize your actions, and in some cases, they may even try to break you. But if you do not guard your mind, you will allow these external forces to infiltrate your inner peace. The Apostle Paul spoke to this reality when he wrote in Philippians 4:8, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things." This scripture is not just a suggestion, it is a directive. It is a call to guard your heart and mind from the negative forces that seek to invade them. The external chaos will continue, the criticisms will flow, but you have the power to decide what thoughts take root in your heart. Consider the power of a simple thought. One negative thought can derail your entire day. If someone insults you, if you face a setback, that thought can begin to spiral, taking you down a path of self-doubt, bitterness, or even anger. But if you do not allow those thoughts to fester, you can stop them in their tracks. It starts with recognizing that your thoughts are not always the truth. Just because someone says something about you does not mean it defines you. Just because you encounter a setback does not mean you are a failure. Think about a time when someone's opinion or comment affected you deeply. Maybe someone called you weak or told you that you would never amount to anything. If you allowed that thought to settle in your mind, it might have led you to question your worth, your potential, or your future. But the key is in how you respond to these thoughts. You see, your mind is like a garden. If you plant seeds of doubt, bitterness, and negativity, those seeds will grow and eventually choke out the positive things in your life. But if you plant seeds of peace, truth, and strength, they will grow into a flourishing garden of resilience and confidence. The choice is yours. What will you allow to take root in your mind? This is not about ignoring the truth of what people say or pretending that their words don't hurt. It's about recognizing that their words are not the final authority over your life. You have the power to choose your thoughts, and you have the power to choose what you believe about yourself. When you protect your mind, when you take intentional steps to focus on the positive and the true, nothing and no one can steal your peace. The mind is your most valuable asset, and it is worth protecting. If someone throws an insult your way, recognize it for what it is: a fleeting opinion that does not have the power to shape who you are unless you allow it to. Guard your mind, and your life will follow. The power of forgiveness, the ability to forgive, is one of the most profound spiritual tools you have at your disposal. Forgiveness is not just about letting someone else off the hook. It is about releasing yourself from the chains of anger, resentment, and bitterness that hold you captive. When you hold on to unforgiveness, you are giving someone else the power to control your emotional state. You are allowing their actions to dictate your feelings, your peace, and your future. Forgiveness is an act of liberation. It is easy to believe that forgiveness is for the benefit of the other person, but in truth, it is for your own benefit. Holding on to grudges, harboring resentment, and nursing wounds only hurts you. The person who wronged you has likely moved on, while you remain stuck in the prison of your own bitterness. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks that prison. It allows you to move forward without the weight of the past holding you back. Take the example of Joseph in the Bible. Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and unjustly imprisoned. He had every reason to hold on to bitterness, to seek revenge, and to let his past define his future. But when the opportunity arose for Joseph to take revenge on his brothers, he chose forgiveness. In Genesis 50:20, Joseph said to his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." Joseph understood that his forgiveness was not about excusing their behavior. It was about releasing himself from the toxic grip of bitterness and trusting that God had a greater purpose in it all. Forgiveness, then, is an act of freedom. It is the act of refusing to allow someone else's actions to control your emotional state. It doesn't mean that what they did was right, but it means you are choosing to let go of the anger and resentment that are holding you captive. In doing so, you free yourself to move forward in peace. Consider the impact of unforgiveness on your own life. Have you ever found yourself harboring bitterness towards someone who hurt you? Maybe it was a friend who betrayed you, a colleague who took credit for your work, or a loved one who abandoned you. That pain can fester, and over time it can transform into a weight that drags you down. But when you forgive, you are no longer burdened by that pain. You reclaim your peace, your joy, and your future. Forgiveness allows you to walk away from the past and step into the fullness of your future. The power of forgiveness is so transformative because it is not just about letting someone else go free. It's about taking back control of your life. It's about choosing peace over pain, joy over bitterness, and hope over despair. When you forgive, you are not excusing the wrong done to you. You are choosing to release the emotional hold it has on your life. Nelson Mandela, after spending 27 years in prison, chose forgiveness over hatred. Despite the deep injustices he faced, he understood that holding on to anger would only prolong his suffering. Mandela's forgiveness allowed him to lead a nation out of apartheid, showing the world the power of forgiveness to heal wounds and change the course of history. Forgiveness does not change the past, but it changes your future. It breaks the chains of bitterness and anger, allowing you to walk in freedom and peace. When you forgive, you are no longer a prisoner to the past. You are free to live fully in the present, with your heart open to the future. Forgiveness is not always easy, but it is always worth it. It is a spiritual weapon that sets you free. By choosing to forgive, you gain the power to move forward, unburdened by the weight of past hurts. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, a gift that will carry you into a life of peace and joy, no matter what others may say or do. When you face the trials of life and the negativity of others, the one thing that will keep you standing strong is spiritual strength. It is the internal power that comes from a deep connection to your faith and to God. This strength doesn't come from what's happening around you, but from what is happening inside of you. It is not influenced by the highs and lows of life, nor by the actions of others. Instead, it is a constant source of stability and peace. The world can be a chaotic and unpredictable place. People will disappoint you, betray you, and try to drag you down. But if you are anchored in spiritual strength, you will not be moved. Your peace will not be swayed by the circumstances of your life. It is like a tree planted by the water. It remains firm even when the storms come. This strength comes from understanding that your foundation is not in the temporary things of this world, but in the eternal presence of God. Think of the example of the Apostle Paul. Paul faced incredible hardships. He was imprisoned, beaten, shipwrecked, and constantly in danger. Yet in the midst of all these trials, Paul wrote, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Philippians 4:13. What was it that kept Paul going despite the external pressures? It was his unwavering belief that his strength came from God. When you understand that your source of strength is infinite, your response to life's challenges changes. You no longer rely on your own understanding, your own abilities, or the support of others to get through difficulties. You know that you have access to a power that is beyond you. This kind of strength is what keeps you rooted when everything around you is in turmoil. Think about Job, a man who lost everything: his wealth, his family, his health. Yet through it all, Job declared, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." Job's circumstances were dire, yet his spiritual strength allowed him to say that his faith in God was stronger than anything the world could throw at him. When your spiritual strength is rooted in God's love and promises, you become unshakable. Nothing in this world can take away your inner peace or your trust in the one who holds your future. When life tries to knock you down, spiritual strength helps you to stand tall. It is the courage to face challenges without being overwhelmed by them. It is the ability to walk through hardship knowing that you are not walking alone. You are walking with God, and His strength is made perfect in your weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:12. This is the core of spiritual strength. It is not about having everything figured out or being free from difficulty, but about trusting in God's guidance and His sustaining power. Spiritual strength enables you to walk through the fire and come out refined. Consider the life of Esther, a woman who faced great danger but had the courage to rise up for the sake of her people. As a queen in the Persian Empire, she was in a position of power, but that power came with risks. The king had the power to execute anyone who entered his court without being summoned, yet Esther chose to approach him to plead for the lives of her people. When faced with a potentially deadly choice, Esther did not rely on her own strength or position. Instead, she called for prayer and fasting, seeking the spiritual strength she needed to carry out her mission. When she stood before the king, she did so with the strength of God backing her. And as a result, she saved her people. Esther's story is a reminder that spiritual strength empowers you to face difficult situations with boldness and confidence, knowing that you are not alone. It teaches us that we don't need to face life's challenges relying solely on our own abilities. When we surrender to God and tap into His strength, we find that we are capable of things we never thought possible. Another important aspect of spiritual strength is the peace it brings in the midst of turmoil. Jesus, during His time on earth, was often surrounded by chaos. He faced opposition from religious leaders, rejection from His own people, and even the threat of death. Yet, He remained unshaken. When His disciples were caught in a storm on the Sea of Galilee, Jesus was sleeping peacefully in the boat. When they woke Him, He calmed the storm with a word. His peace was not dependent on the circumstances around Him. His peace was rooted in His relationship with the Father. This is the power of spiritual strength. It provides an unshakable peace that the world cannot take away. In our own lives, we may face storms, emotional, financial, relational, or spiritual. But when you are anchored in spiritual strength, you can face the storm with calm assurance. You may not have all the answers, but you know that God is with you and His strength is sufficient. The storm will pass, but your peace remains because it is not dependent on external conditions. It is the peace that comes from knowing that God is in control, that He will never leave you, and that His plan for your life is greater than any temporary struggle. Spiritual strength also gives you the resilience to keep moving forward. Life often brings setbacks and disappointments. There will be times when it feels like everything is working against you. But spiritual strength helps you to keep going. It helps you to persevere through trials, not because you have endless energy or resources, but because you trust that God is with you every step of the way. Resilience isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up, knowing that God is with you and continuing to move forward with faith in His promises. Think of the story of Ruth, who experienced the loss of her husband and was left in a foreign land with no immediate hope for the future. But Ruth's spiritual strength Her trust in God gave her the courage to move forward. She chose to leave the familiar behind and step into an uncertain future, trusting that God would guide her. Her resilience paid off when she found favor with Boaz, and eventually she became the great-grandmother of King David. Spiritual strength empowered Ruth to take bold steps, knowing that God's plan for her was greater than her circumstances. The secret to never letting anyone affect you lies in your relationship with God and the spiritual strength you gain from it. When you are anchored in this strength, no matter how others treat you or how difficult the situation may seem, you remain steadfast. Your peace, your purpose, and your identity are rooted in something far stronger than the opinions and actions of those around you. This strength transforms you from within. It doesn't just help you survive, it helps you thrive no matter what comes your way. When you face the storms of life, remember that you are not alone. Your spiritual strength is an unshakable foundation that will carry you through. No matter what happens, you will stand firm because your strength is anchored in something far greater than anything this world can offer. Never letting anyone affect you is not a passive state. It is an active, intentional decision to stand firm in your identity, your purpose, your mental strength, and your spiritual resilience. It requires you to know who you are, to embrace the power of forgiveness, to guard your mind, and to draw your strength from a deeper, eternal source. The world will always try to shake you, challenge you, and criticize you. People will come with their opinions, their judgments, and their negativity. But when you know your true worth, when your purpose is clear, when your mind is guarded, and when you are anchored in the spiritual strength that comes from God, you will find that nothing and no one can sway you. You will walk through life with unshakable confidence, knowing that your worth is not defined by others' approval, that your purpose is far bigger than their criticisms, and that your peace is rooted in something far greater than circumstances. You will rise above the noise and become a reflection of the strength that comes from within. This is not just a way of surviving. It is a way of thriving. You will become a beacon of strength to others, showing them what it looks like to stand firm in the face of opposition and to walk in the fullness of your God-given potential. In the end, the world may try to affect you, but it will find that you are unshaken because you are rooted in a truth far greater than anything it can throw your way. When you stand in your identity, anchored in purpose, protected by mental resilience, and empowered by spiritual strength, you become unstoppable. And no one, nothing will ever be able to affect you again.